Welcome to the Beau Show. I conducted a wide variety of interviews at Turning Point USA's recent AmericaFest in Phoenix. And this episode is a continuation, so that I can show you more of these very interesting interviews. What I found compelling about AmericaFest was not just the youth and the energy, but also the diversity of what I saw. The young conservative movement is not just white, straight, and male, or am I supposed to say cisgender? I guess we will have to save that for whatever the opposite of AmericaFest is. But this movement has a number of young women in it, and also black men. I interviewed a handful of black men that have made compelling cases for their conservative principles, some of whom transitioned, no, not genders, but ideologies. Or maybe they were conservative all along, but the world was telling them, if you're black, you must be a liberal or a Democrat. And then there was this moment that you all may remember.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
So I wanted to know from these guys when they realized they were conservative and what kind of evolution they had. I spoke with former police officer Brandon Tatum, New Jersey congressional candidate Billy Prempeh, and Stephen Davis, aka MAGA Hulk. They are taking the narrative back. Here's my first sit down with former police officer Brandon Tatum.
Well, Officer Tatum, thank you so much for being with us today. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Brandon, you're a former police officer. How do you feel about the defund the police movement, and especially now liberal cities backtracking and refunding the police? How do you feel about that?
Well, first of all, I think it's the most ridiculous thing ever. There's no way in the world that you want improvement in law enforcement and you're going to defund them. And now we can see that they made a mistake. And now that they've dabbled in this conspiracy that police officers are racist and is systemic and damaging the community, now that they've said these things and gave negative rhetoric, they see that because of that, the communities are going down. And now they know that you have to refund these police departments in order for them to get the proper training, morale, and all of the above.
So they're having to eat their own words, basically.
Yeah, and I'm glad they're eating crow. I'm glad.
Do you believe there is legitimate systemic racism in most police departments in America right now, or is that just a tall tale?
It's complete bullcrap. I want to say the curse word, but I'm a Christian.
We understand.
All right, so
am I.
But it's complete bullcrap. There's no systemic racism in law enforcement.
You never saw it.
Never saw it.
Okay.
Never seen anybody. Never heard of anybody that have heard of any system or systemic issues in police department associated with race. If you ask me, law enforcement in America is probably one of the least racist professions. You have majority in some of these minority communities. The majority of the police department is white. You have white men who are going out every day, putting their lives on the line to protect minorities. To me, that seems like a situation where you would see the least amount of racism in America.
Do you think there's ample prosecution and punishment of the looters and the arsonists that have been involved in the BLM and the Antifa riots? And if not, what do you think is the proper punishment? Well,
I think that they're doing nothing to curb this. How do we know? It's because you see an uptick in some of these smash and grab and looting and larceny and violent crimes around the country. And when you see that they're not prosecuting people, I've heard stories of people traveling outside of the state of California to commit these crimes because they're lax and lenient and they go over commit the crimes. There's not enough resources in the law enforcement agencies to follow up with these individuals. So when you're weak on crime and you allow this to happen, it's going to perpetuate and you're going to see it get worse. The way to fix it is that when people commit crimes or they do things that are against the law, hold them accountable. If the law says if you loot a Neiman Marcus and you have $100,000 worth of stuff, you need to go to jail. You need to sit there. You can't let people out and give them some bail because you're trying to do some faulty reform.
Yeah.
Prosecution is the best way to hold people and allow them to realize that you're taking things seriously. And I believe that they will not commit the crimes in which we see currently today.
What do you think about those out there who say that the justice system got Kyle Rittenhouse wrong and they got the Ahmaud Arbery situation right? It's a jury of the peers. It was unanimous. What do you say to those people who point fingers and say, well, this one was right and this one's wrong?
Well, I think that people have to be informed. You can't just look at the headlines and say, okay, I know the truth about the situation. Kyle Rittenhouse, if you watch the trial, you can see, you listen to jury instructions, the way the judge presented to the jurors, you can see what they had to deliberate on. And with the evidence presented, they made the right decision. And in Ahmaud Arbery, I think a lot of people didn't watch the case. I disagree with the verdict in Ahmaud Arbery's situation. However, I do understand why the jury found them guilty, and it's based on the jury instructions. So when you go through the entire case and you're informed about these things, I think you can make a valid decision of whether or not things are justified according to the law or not.
But most people don't actually watch the case and understand the facts.
I would say 90% of people don't watch the case enough. They watch snippets and clips that are posted online and the commentary from different individuals. But you have to watch all of the nuances and testimony and cross-examination, direct examination, for you to have a full picture of whether or not the law is being implemented fairly or not.
My last question for you, Brandon, is I think a provocative one, and I feel like you're the guy to address it. What is the best way that African-American communities and police departments can better understand each other?
Well, first of all, you have to understand that a relationship is between two people. You can't have a relationship when only one side is working hard. So if you're in the inner city community, you have to understand that our leaders need to start to reach out to law enforcement officers and the police department to connect. It can't just be one-sided. The law enforcement agencies can't be the only ones pitching this idea. We both need to come together, realizing that policing is essential and realizing that partnership within the community for a police department is also essential. When we come together and build a relationship in unity, I think we'll see a better result.
So if you were the police chief of Minneapolis right now, what would you do? What would your plan be?
First of all, I would tell all of these left-wing lunatics to shut up and quit talking. I'll stand up for my police officers and tell them that I have their back. I understand that their struggle. And, you know, I would advocate for funding them to making sure that they get the proper training. And it's so many things to do, but that's one of the things I'll do is be a voice for my police officers and standing up for them when they're doing what's right and criticizing them when they do what's wrong.
Yeah. Well, officer, thank you for your time and your passion. We appreciate you.
Well, God bless you and thank you.
God bless you as well. All right. Thank you, sir. Thanks for it.
Next, I interviewed Billy Prempeh, a first-generation American running for Congress in a district in New Jersey that has been a firm Democrat seat for 40 years. That's a tough glass ceiling to break, but I have to tell you, if anyone can do it, it's Billy Prempeh, and you'll see why. Have a look.
Billy Prempeh, thank you so much for joining me here at NTD. Billy, you are running in the 9th Congressional District in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Tell me why you're running.
So I'm running in the 9th District. This is actually my second go running in Congress. I ran in 2020, and I've lived in Paterson, New Jersey my entire life, and I've seen the violent crime increase more and more each year, and within the past 6 years or so, it's gotten completely out of control. Recently, last month, it just hit 83% violent crime. Our police have been understaffed for a very, very long time, and the education system has been very poor. Most of the things that I know today, I learned after I came out of school. And I wanted to help fix the education program, try and make our community safer, and make the 9th District a place that people could actually want to live and raise a family. There's a lot of potential there, and I believe the current congressperson has dropped the ball big time.
Your parents immigrated from Ghana in Africa, and so as a first-generation American, you are really living your American dream. Tell me what led you to join the Air Force at age 18? There's
two things that made me want to join the Air Force. The first one was Barack Obama, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Back then, when I wasn't conservative, I guess I would say I was a Democrat at that point. Everybody was a Democrat where I grew up.
Yeah.
And you know, I felt, you know, what better time to serve than under the first black president. And I thought that was something that was going to be great. It turned out to be a little bit terrible. Unfortunately, some of the things that Barack Obama did that changed and actually eventually made me become a Republican. But the second reason is, I mean, this is a great nation. You know, I really love this country, and I love everything that it's done for my family. They brought 14 other relatives here. All of them came through the process legally. And I felt, you know, what better way to give back than to actually just get involved and defend this country.
So Billy, walk me through this, because you touched on something that actually was part of my next question. You have conservative ideals now, but what motivated you really was this inspirational figure, Barack Obama, first African-American president. But you realized, obviously, at some point, your ideals did not match with his.
Yeah.
So what is it that matured or transitioned for you that made you realize you are a conservative guy?
So before I went to the Air Force, one of my friends told me about Ron Paul, and I didn't really care to hear from him. You know, I had beliefs that Republicans were all racist, and I believed all the typical nonsense, and I didn't really care much for it. But when I was in the military and I started to see how Barack Obama was using our troops to go into Libya and bomb them in Operation Odyssey Dawn, and then he's giving millions and millions of dollars to these moderate rebels that turned out to be ISIS, I realized that we're not actually on the right side. And I really started actually looking into his policies rather than just paying attention to the fact that he's an enigmatic leader. And I started to realize that I don't agree with any of the things that he actually stands for.
I was watching one of your videos, which was really heartfelt. I guess it's one of your promotional campaign videos. And you talked about the privilege really is to be an American. Why do you feel that way?
I believe it's a privilege because to make a really bad example, even the poorest person in the United States is doing better than the poorest person in one of the worst countries. I mean, at the very least, someone has the ability to have a cell phone, and when you're at rock bottom, you always have an opportunity to climb up. You know, in some places like India, for example, you can only go so far based on your caste. It's not like that in the United States. Everybody has the opportunity to grow. Everybody has the opportunity to do whatever they want, and that's an opportunity that's shared amongst all. It's a great privilege because if you were to try and live this lifestyle in, say, United Kingdom, for example, there's things that you can do here in the United States that aren't even possible in the United Kingdom, Canada, or even Australia. I mean, we have a constitution that enshrines rights that were given to us by God, and that's something that acts as the bedrock for our legal system, and that's something that no other country has, and I really believe that it's a privilege that you're not going to be able to get anywhere else.
Well, let's talk about the 9th District in New Jersey. Tell me a little bit about the politics of it, and what I know what you're trying to change, but what are the demographics there that make it not only so Democrat, but so crime-ridden? What's going on there?
So the reason why, for example, my city, Paterson, is the 3rd largest city in New Jersey, and one of the issues is that they're supporting a lot of this, you know, Black Lives Matter, defund the police type of rhetoric.
Yep.
In Paterson, for example, the police are understaffed significantly. There's about 200 police officers understaffed, and this happened back in 2014, I believe it was, where a lot of the police officers got laid off, and crime just started to grow and skyrocket ever since then. They've been voting Democrat for well over 40, almost 50 years with the exact same policies, and what woke me up to wanting to run in this race is I realized that my opponent has been in politics for just about 40 years.
Yeah.
He's been in Congress for 26 years, and he was mayor before that for 8 years, and then before that he was an assemblyman, and then he's just been involved the entire time. And I said, listen, if anything's going to change, anything's going to get fixed, it has to start from the root. Who has the most influence? Who has the most power in the city? And it's him. I want to see the place do well, and I want to see it do good. And that's what
you mentioned, so Bill Pascrell is his name, that would be your competitor. He's had 40 years of experience there, right?
Probably more, honestly.
Kind of same as Joe Biden, in a way, 40 years of experience.
Well, yeah.
But you're voting for the same things the citizens are. So what is it about the citizens of the 9th Congressional District in New Jersey, or America for that matter, that makes them think that the same thing of voting that way is going to get them any different result?
Well, it's muscle memory and this name recognition. Hearing his name over and over again, you just vote because, hey, that's just what my father did, that's what my grandfather did, that's what everybody else has done. But also, the Republican Party hasn't done a lot of effort in trying to change the 9th District. There's some Republicans in leadership that are very good friends of my opponent and would rather him be in there. Some don't even want me to be in this race. But the unfortunate thing about that is when the Republicans don't get involved and they don't try and fight the fights that are worth fighting, what happens is communities like mine get exploited, they get destroyed.
Yep.
And it's at a point now where it's being gentrified and people are being put out of their community while outsiders are moving in. The cost of living is going through the roof, and we can't even afford to live in our own communities, let alone be safe in our own communities.
Yeah, you talked about the crime being so bad there in Paterson and the violent homicides, things of that sort. If you were to be elected, what is it you can do, other than the obvious, which I think you said is to give more funding to the police? What else can you do to make it safer?
Well, another one of the other things that I could do is, like, obviously getting more funding for the police, but as well as creating community boards for the people to work cohesively with the police.
Okay.
There's also a kind of problem where the people feel that they can't go to the police, but then the police also can't really work well with the community because the community doesn't want to snitch out the other people. And you kind of see that dynamic in a lot of inner cities, unfortunately. But I want to create a program where we can have a lot of people from within the city of Paterson get involved in the police departments. There's no grants to allow for these kinds of programs, and it's only when there's political showboating happening and election times coming around that, hey, we'll hire 20 officers, we'll hire 5 officers here, but the crime rate remains the same, and nothing is being done to make it any better.
How did it land on you, Billy, when you heard Joe Biden say, if you don't know the difference between me and Trump, you ain't black?
I wasn't surprised, honestly, because I always believed that Joe Biden was a racist. I still believe he's a racist, and he definitely is. I mean, he created the '94 crime bill, for example, which has locked up so many African Americans, and it's still causing tremendous problems up until this day. The issue that I have with him, though, is the fact that if someone can come into the United States illegally, and I was just recently at the border about a month ago and saw just how bad it is firsthand, when people were trying to come into the United States illegally, he was actually trying to propose giving them close to $500,000 for basically violating our laws and being separated from their families when he wrote bills that separated black people from their families, and he profited off of it. The private prisons profited off of it, but he wants to take our money and give it to illegals. So I'm not surprised by that. It's like there's definitely an agenda behind what he wants to do, and he's undermining the American people. So I really wasn't surprised when he said something like that, because I believe that's his true character.
What percentage of your district is black right now?
It's about 10 to 13%.
All right. Whether it's Patterson or whether it's another district across America, why do you personally feel it is that the African American community continues to vote Democrat, other than the obvious, let's say, Barack Obama, charismatic figure? Why habitually are they voting for Democrats and not willing to listen, by and large, to a Republican side?
I'll tell you why. They'll say it's impossible to win and we can't go into those areas. This is what Republicans will tell you.
Yeah.
I consider these Republicans weak. All right. The truth is, they're not fighting the fights worth fighting. If we're going to go military here, when you're going into battle and you're trying to take over a certain amount of land, there's certain small skirmishes that you have to do, right? But then there's always a very large battle where even there may be limited resources, but it's a battle that still needs to be fought. Because if it's not fought, eventually the enemy gets stronger and they start to move into the smaller areas where you'll constantly fight these small skirmishes and you'll be stuck and you'll eventually be eliminated. And that's what I see is happening in the United States with the Republican Party, not just in District 9, but all across the United States. Every single state that should be flipped can't be flipped because there's no Republicans in the inner cities. Oh, it's a waste to go in there, but that's where the population is.
Yep.
And if you're not going where the population is and you're not talking with them, you're not giving an alternative perspective, you're going to lose every single time.
Last question I have for you, Billy. You've talked about, I believe in a video, about vaccine hesitancy in the black community. Tell me why you think that is, because you've got a kind of an interesting take on it that I think viewers should hear. So
I put out a tweet about a month and a half ago where I was talking about how in the city of New York, in New York City, 28% of African Americans between the ages of 18 and 44 were unvaccinated. And this is based off of the numbers from September. And this was directly from the NYC health website. And the reason why I believe that this is because there's so many things that have happened to the African Americans for many, many years. Many, many years. The Tuskegee experiments, the Agent Orange experiments. There's lots of things where the African Americans have been used as guinea pigs, and it builds distrust. Now there's campaigns where they're trying to get African Americans to get involved to take the shot, and they're hiring musicians and artists and trying to act trendy and making these really disrespectful hip-hop commercials and coax us into getting the vaccine, and nobody wants to take it because, listen, I love President Trump. I love a lot of the things that he does. One thing that I absolutely cannot get behind is Operation Warp Speed. I think it was very bad. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have a vaccine, but the fact that he rushed the vaccine in under 2 years, and now it's out, it hasn't gone through the same strenuous testing as all the other vaccines, and now we have a government where they're mandating people to go and get this vaccine, but they're going to hang a carrot over their head. You can't get your job. You can't put food on the table. You can't do what we tell. You can't do what we want unless we tell you. I think it's really ridiculous. And then to end on that, I'm a very big supporter of voter ID. Yet the Democrats will go and tell you that voter ID is racist, but I think it's extremely racist that 72% of African Americans can barely do business in New York unless you show them the COVID passport. They'll make you eat food outside in a little plastic bubble like you're a dog before you can go in there and eat on the inside. But they'll say, well, you have a choice in taking the vaccine. You don't have a choice in actually having a different skin color. Well, I would say you have a choice in getting an ID as well, too.
Do you feel that, now that I think about it, that when they would say the virus disproportionately affects people of color, especially African Americans, that that's an impetus for you to get the vaccine?
I think that's a made-up statistic, honestly. I mean, and a lot of these numbers, like we can't really verify at the end of the day.
Right.
They'll tell you one thing, and then a week later, it'll be a completely different thing. Wear the mask today. No, don't wear masks today. No, wear 2 masks. Or second thought, don't wear 2 masks. They'd say that the thing came from bat stew. Oh, no, it actually came from China. Then we find out that the National Institute of Health was helping to finance this. So the United States and China are kind of in cohorts with making this virus. So it's like you don't know what to believe or who to believe. I believe that this is all about making large profits for big pharma, and they want as many people to take it as possible. Someone who's under the age of 12 has a practically zero chance of catching the COVID virus, but now they're trying to mandate people to go and get this. In California, you can't even go into a business if you're 5 years old unless you show your vaccine card, which I think is absolutely absurd. This is about making money. It's about getting as many people to take it as possible. But black people are reluctant to go out there and take that thing, so let's make it popular, let's make it cool, let's make it trendy so that we can keep these profits up. That's what I believe.
Billy Prempeh, thank you much for your time and your talent.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
my
much,
friend.
brother.
Appreciate it.
Finally, I talked with a guy with a big body and a big personality, and also a great heart. His name is Stephen Davis.
Well, we're here at AmericaFest, and I'm joined by Stephen Davis. Stephen, thank you so much for being here.
It's good. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, now, was it Don Jr. that dubbed you the MAGA Hulk? Is that correct?
It was actually Benny Johnson, TPUSA's Benny Johnson, and then Don Jr. echoed that. Yes, yes.
So
indeed.
you are the MAGA Hulk.
Yes, sir.
The one and only.
The one and only. Yes, indeed.
Well, Stephen, tell me what made you come to TPUSA's AmericaFest this weekend?
Oh, I mean, this is just a wonderful event, right? And I knew this was going to be a fantastic. This is the Super Bowl of events right here. And I had to be a part of something like this, something of this magnitude, where a bunch of Americans come together, a bunch of conservatives, actually people from all walks of life, as long as you love America. Come on by, and that's what we did, and it's fantastic. It's been nothing but a blessing to be here at this event. So many amazing speakers, so many amazing artists, so much great information. I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Well, you know, Stephen, there's a lot of young people. That's obviously what TP focuses on. So tell me what your message would be to young people that are here and everywhere, actually. What would you say to them?
Well, first and foremost, stand on the courage of your daggone convictions, okay? We have a whole leftist apparatus that's trying to sway you to different ideologies, especially anti-American ideologies, that is very detrimental for the furthering of the United States of America. So my message is, look, stand strong. Be resolute when it comes to what it is that you espouse and what it is that you believe in. And also, when it comes to the young men, be men. Be strong, be robust, be God-fearing, be just the type of man that's going to bolster society and uphold society and propel it into the daggone future. Women, stand strong as women. Stand, as a young woman coming up, stand strong. I mean, there's going to be a whole, like I said, there's a whole leftist apparatus that's trying to tell you that to be a woman, you have to be lewd and engage in lasciviousness and things of this nature. No, be a woman. Be a Proverbs 31 woman. Be a strong woman. Be a resolute woman. And I tell you, America will be in a much better place if we can get our youth to be on that type of track.
I'm into that. I mean, you see that men are being emasculated and becoming beta males, and women are, the feminist movement is killing great women.
Absolutely.
And hurting the men in the process.
Yes.
Let's talk about Fauci. I was looking at your Twitter. I know you've been hard on him, and you should be. I think that's worthy of. What's your opinion of Fauci? Why do you think they keep moving the goalpost on this?
Because this is all about control. This is all about power. And once you get, especially once the left gets a taste of this power, this control that they've been craving for quite some time, they can't relinquish it without a fight, and they won't relinquish it without a fight. Dr. Fauci being the head of that, and it's really sad to see this. President Biden said that made a joke about Dr. Fauci being the president, right? And he's making policies, he's influencing policy that's going to hurt the American citizen, and that has been hurting the American citizen. And it's really sad, it's really despicable. This man has been really doing a number on our freedoms, and it seems like he's more interested in this control and this power scheme as opposed to the American way of life, which is based on freedom. So I'm very upset about that. We need to change that.
So, Stephen, what's the biggest lie being told to the black community?
Oh, goodness gracious.
I'm sure there are many.
There are so many.
So what stands out to you is perhaps the largest?
I think one of the biggest ones, one of the most long-lasting lies is black equals Democrat. I think that's one of the most pervasive lies when it comes to the left.
Because you're not.
Exactly. And I used to be. I used to be a staunch leftist, and I fell into the whole trap of the media. And whenever there's any type of black person who deigns to think for himself, that's not allowed. That's not allowed at all. So they tend to tear you down and tear you asunder.
I keep hearing this, Stephen, because I interviewed Billy Prempeh, who's running in New Jersey. He said the same thing. He was inspired by this charismatic Barack Obama. And he thought he was espousing the same things that he believed in. But then, just like you, it sounds like there was an evolution over time that caused you this awakening. Absolutely. What happened?
Well, and this is funny because I talk to a lot of black people with, black conservatives, and they pretty much say it's all the same thing. Once they did their research, they come to realize that they're on the wrong side of history. And it happens every time. It happens every time. And that's why the left doesn't want us to do our research. They want us to just believe them, take them at their word, just listen to MSNBC, CNN, all the different legacy media networks and things of that nature, and just do as we're told.
Yeah.
Right? It's a Democrat plantation, if you will.
Yeah.
So they want us to do as we're told. Don't think for yourself. Don't do any research. Don't read. Don't educate yourself. That's what they want. And as soon as we do, we realize that it's the left that likes to tear down the black community with welfare and feminism and all these other different type of policies that's been detrimental to the black community. It's the left that's the party of racism, the party of Jim Crow, the party of slavery, the party of the KKK.
Yeah.
You know, you have people like Joe Biden on the left that says, if you don't know whether you're voting for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
Was that patronizing to you?
That was incredibly patronizing. Who are you? Are you the arbiter of the black race? Are you going to tell? I guess my
Because he's telling you,
yes,
you don't know the difference, or if you don't, then you can't possibly be the color of your skin. It's impossible.
Can't possibly be.
I mean, I think everybody was patronized by that, but
Absolutely.
for him to say something so absurd, I have to think that's offensive to just pretty much everybody.
Absolutely. But there are still people on the left defending it.
Yeah.
Right? There's still people on the left defending it. Even Jamel Hill was staunchly defending that statement.
Yeah.
I'm just like, this is unbelievable.
Yeah.
That you're going to go ahead and defend an out-and-out racist statement that's completely racially insensitive as something as that. Now I'm appalled. I
want to focus on two black athletes, and I want to know what your opinion of them are. LeBron James and Colin Kaepernick. Because did you see the Netflix special with Colin?
I didn't see it. I couldn't.
I saw the
stomach
first
it.
chapter.
Yes.
Yeah, and just because I wanted to know, I felt like it was right for me to hear at what he was saying. But he was comparing athletes, NFL athletes, to slaves on the plantation. So, what's your opinion of Colin and LeBron? How do you feel about them politically? Colin was a great athlete. LeBron is a great athlete. There's no question about his talent. What do you think about what they're saying?
See, here's the thing. Apparently, there's this idea that just because you're good at one thing, you're great at everything else.
Good point.
Not at all, okay? I know nothing about sports. I don't follow sports as closely as I used to. I used to follow it really closely. I'm now more into the politics side. But I couldn't speak to a lot of the sports issues, what's going on, who's players on which team, and this and that and the other. So I stay in my lane. LeBron, Colin, stay in your lane. Because you have no idea what you're talking about. Colin Kaepernick is talking about it's like slavery and this and that. Yet and still, you're still trying to get into the NFL. So you want to be a part of this slavery system that you're trying to tear down, right? Okay, you have LeBron James. You know, he's made bad tweet after bad tweet after bad statement after bad statement. You have a platform of millions of people. You have a responsibility to the people who are listening to you, and you're going to use that platform to tear America down. You're going to use that platform to scare black people. What he said, black people are hunted as soon as they walk out their door.
Yeah.
Really? I'm 335 pounds, 6'4". I am not a small target. So why have I not been shot? Why have I not been hunted? You know? So it's these narratives that are very detrimental. And I hear these young black men and women in these inner cities saying and repeating the same exact thing that these people are saying. This is detrimental to the United States of America. This is detrimental to the cohesion of the United States of America. And it's despicable.
Well, I find it interesting that Enes Kanter, the Turkish immigrant that in the NBA that plays for the Celtics, changed his name to Enes Freedom. And you've got a new American citizen defending this country more than people like LeBron and Kaepernick, who've been here and lived in freedom all their life. That seems interesting to me.
It's that situation where you have, you know, you see this with immigrants a lot, right? You see these illegal immigrants that come into the United States of America, Vietnamese, Chinese, and the like, and they love America.
Yeah.
Love it. Why? Because they came from a system that tore them down, that they didn't have rights. They literally didn't have the rights that we have. They came from communistic systems, you know, socialistic systems.
Chinese Communist Party.
Thank you. Coming from Cuba, coming from Venezuela, right? Coming from these different places that you're not afforded the opportunities that you are here in America, right? And you have these people, it's kind of like that kid who was raised in a very rich family, and they get jaded because they've always had everything they've ever wanted. So you know, they complain. All they do is complain. And you have the person who came from squalor, came from a situation where it's not conducive to a proper living, and they come here and they appreciate what it is that we have. A lot of these people like LeBron James, a lot of these people like Colin Kaepernick can't appreciate what it is because they've lived it their whole life. So they think this is something better, this utopia that's out there. And it's not. Okay, it's not. This socialistic system, this communist, it's not the way to go. right?
Yep.
And you have these people who come from these systems, and they love America, and I love these type of people because they are the essence, and they have embodied the spirit of America.
Let's talk about Kyle Rittenhouse for a moment. He was speaking earlier, and I know that you followed that trial.
Yes.
Seems the justice system obviously worked in his favor. Do you have a lot of faith in the justice system after watching that verdict?
I do. It's been reinvigorated. I tell you that much. I was a little scared. I was scared that situation, that they were going to be intimidated. The jury was going to be intimidated by the constant, perpetual media that's been against him. Calling him a racist.
Yeah.
How is he a racist? BLM coming out calling him a racist. How is Kyle Rittenhouse a racist? Not one black person was shot. Not one. But yet and still he's a racist? How? How does that even compute? How does Black Lives Matter get into the thick of things and try to intimidate people into believing a certain thing and voting a certain way and or deliberating a certain way? It's scary. It's scary times that we live in. It's very scary times we live in, but I'm so glad the justice system prevailed. I'm so glad that justice was served, especially in the case, you go to Justice Smollett, right?
Yes.
And justice was served in the proper manner. So I'm really starting to have.
It's interesting. People think the justice system didn't work in that case. They think it didn't work in Jesse's case because he didn't get off, which is interesting. So, but they think it's correct. Many people think the Ahmaud Arbery situation was correct. So they're picking and choosing which ones they think work and which ones they don't.
Yes.
I do think that the judge in the Rittenhouse case did a very fair job.
Absolutely.
It seems he conducted. So, Stephen, finally, it is close to Christmas. We're in the week of Christmas. What is your Christmas wish for everyone out there? If you could impart a Christmas wish, not just to people at Turning Point USA AmericaFest, but all Americans, what would you say?
What'd you hope my Christmas wish is for people to embody the spirit of America once more. We've gotten so far off the beaten path when it comes to what it is to be an American, what it is to understanding what it is to be an American, being constitutionalists, right? It shouldn't even be a left and right issue. Being adhering to the Constitution and adhering to the spirit of America should be an American thing. We should love America. We should love our country. Waving our flag is not racist, right? Loving your country is not racist. So I wish we can get back on track, and that would be my wish. That would be my wish, is that we can get back on track as Americans to love our country once more. And if we can do that, we can love our countrymen once again and love one another, and we can really spread around some Christmas cheer.
Well, my Christmas wish is to get on the bench press and somehow get as big as you. So Merry Christmas, Stephen. I got to get back to the bench press, I guess.